Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I first learned about Tanner Bishop while playing in the youth basketball league. He went to a different school than me. Our teams met at the boys' club on Saturdays. He was one of those kids who grow up early, and he was 5 or 6 inches, 12 to 15 centimeters, taller than everyone else. On reflection, I thought that my team actually did a pretty good job with Tanner's team. The talent gap is obvious. I also noticed that as soon as Tanner's team got ahead, he started fooling around, showing himself, passing from behind, throwing three-pointers, etc. We went out, and although the end result was not in doubt, we made the game more competitive than it really should have been. We ended up in the same high school and both played football in the first grade. That's when I officially met Tanner. As I expected, Tanner was big, athletic, and popular on the football field. Naturally, he was a quarterback. I tried out for the midfielder position. Our coach used a system with 2 midfielders. There was a guy on our team named Nat Whitfield, who was the fastest at the first halfback position. I was the second. I wasn't as fast as Nate, but I blocked well, protected Tanner when he passed, was a decent runner, and could catch a pass coming out of the backfield, part of the field behind the line of scrimmage. Where Tanner was bright, I was stable. Defensively, Tanner was a middle linebacker, and I played quarterback. During the defensive game, it happened more than once that he tried to make a spectacular breakthrough, and I had to cover him from the defender's position. We were pretty good, and I started talking to a group of football players. Of course, the center of this group was Tanner. They say opposites attract, and although Tanner and I had a lot in common, we were almost opposites in character. He was a loud, popular, sociable guy. On the contrary, I was a bit introverted, balanced, and certainly not bright. But somehow we became good friends. Tanner was smart, but he wasn't always attentive. More than once, I shared my notes with him or tutored him at the last minute to help him with the upcoming test. Usually the reason for his inattention in class was some girl. In return for helping me with my studies, I was socially present in the Tanner solar system. After school, at lunch, at school dances, a crowd of girls and boys always gathered near Tanner. I was cramped in this social circle. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't a nerd, but compared to Tanner, we all looked a little paler. Thanks to this communication, I became a member of the popular crowd. During the first few years of high school, none of us had a girlfriend. We did all the social things that happen at school, but there were no constant companions. Everything changed in the first grade of high school. Out of the blue, and I'm still not sure how it started, Tanner got a girlfriend, and Marie Dubois. Anna studied at St. Cecilia's Catholic School, located on the other side of the city. The fact that she didn't go to our school, but to a Catholic one, gave her a certain local exoticism. Her appearance contributed to this exoticism. Anna was of average height, about 5 feet 7 inches, 170 centimeters. She had dark, almost black hair. She had olive skin and an attractive heart-shaped face, slightly almond-shaped eyes, and full lips. She is very beautiful, but it was her body that made an impression on me. Slim, with a slim waist and athletic strong physique. The prom dance was approaching, and Tanner was obviously attracted to the beautiful Anna. I didn't have a date. One day, a week or so before the dance, Tanner and I were sitting in the cafeteria. "Max, do you have a date for dancing next week?" Tanner asked me. I felt that he was up to something. Although I considered him a close friend, perhaps my best friend, his interest in my well-being was rarely expressed out loud. It was a little unusual that he asked about my dancing status. "No, nothing yet," I told him. We had a lot of great girls we went to school with, but none of them attracted me. "In that case, Anna has a friend, Mia. She's very sweet and she's not dating anyone right now," Tanner told me. "Tanner, I don't know her. I've never seen her. She doesn't know me," I told him. "But what does she look like?" I asked. I guess I was still interested. It turned out that Mia Battle was also a junior at St. Cecilia's School. If Anna was athletic and taller, then Mia was petite. Where Anna was a gorgeous baby, Mia would most likely be considered a cutie. Small, slender, and sweet. We first met at McDonald's. Tanner and I came together. Mia came with Anna. I must have passed some kind of physical test with Mia, and of course she did too. The following Saturday, We went to the prom with Tanner and Anna. That night, after dancing, I told Mia that I had a good time. She replied that she also liked it. I liked her. She was funny, and the fact that she went to another educational institution gave her a kind of mysterious significance in our school. I found out through Tanner that she likes me too. We started dating. There was a Christmas ball at St. Cecilia's school. I think because it was a religious school, they could get away with the word Christmas. In our politically correct school, any December performance should have been called winter. However, it was a big event at St. Cecilia's school, and Tanner and I were invited to dance by our respective couples. The dancing took place not in some crappy school gym, but in the ballroom of the Hilton Hotel in the city center. We walked into the ballroom, Tanner, Anna, Mia, and I wasn't prepared for the hostility from the guys who attended St. Cecilia's school. We were treated as if we were a raid by looters from another village, intent on stealing their women. There were a few comments as we passed, and I didn't see a single friendly male face. I was dancing with Mia, and this guy, dark-haired and stocky, interfered with my dance. I politely let Mia dance. After 2 dances, she joined me at our table. Later, we danced again, and the same guy tried to interfere again. "Michael, I'm dancing with my boyfriend, Max," she said. "I've already danced with you. One more dance, he asked, and tried to move closer, pushing me slightly while staring at Mia. "Hey," I said, and pushed him away. "She doesn't want to dance with you." At these words, Michael turned to me with anger and malice in his eyes and hit me right in the chin. I saw the stars for a second, but I didn't fall. Before he could hit me again, I grabbed him, knocking him to the floor. Mia screams at both of us, and Michael's buddies step in. I felt my arms being grabbed and dragged away. He landed one good kick as I was being dragged away from him. Now 2 of Michael's friends were holding my hands, and he was still glaring into my eyes, moving towards me. And then Tanner intervened. I told him that Tanner was one of the biggest guys in high school, and he's just as big and authoritative now. He pushed Michael away violently and ordered Michael's friends to let me go. At that moment, one of the curators arrived. The fight, if you can call it that, was officially over. The curators conferred, and I noticed one of Michael's friends talking to one of the curators, probably a parent. The adult nods, as if agreeing. The result of the incident is this: Tanner and I were kicked out of the dance. All the protests that we tried to undertake were quickly suppressed. They have the advantage of a home field. Mia and Anna kindly leave with us. As I leave, I hear Michael saying, "See you later, tough guy." Our eyes meet as the 4 of us leave the ballroom. I'm not used to having enemies. Even on the sports fields, I try to be a good athlete and shake hands with the opponent, no matter how aggressive the games become. This is a new experience. Tanner and Anna laugh as we leave. Mia snuggles possessively against me as we all leave the Hilton. "It's still early, and we didn't eat much at the dance," Tanner says. "Let's go to Bernie's Cafe," he says. We cram into a booth in a cafe and talk a little about dancing. "Max, thanks for protecting me," Mia tells me, hugging me. Tanner and Anna laughed at the fight. "You really showed them, Tiger," Tanner commented with a laugh. "Who was that jerk?" he asked. "Just some guy," Mia replied. "A little more than just some guy," Anna added. And then she told us the whole story. This guy, Michael Amich, was Mia's boyfriend for most of her sophomore year. In the summer, she caught him with another girl, and they broke up. He's been trying to get Mia back ever since. "Let's not talk about Michael," Mia interjected. "You're my boyfriend now," Mia said, snuggling up to me on a bench in a cafe. The guy. Obviously, it was enough to push some guy, get hit, and now my status has changed from date to boyfriend. Mia seemed to be impressed by the run-in with Michael Amich. She became more attentive and seemed happy to be with me. We sat for a while, ate and chatted. I hadn't spent so much time with Anna before. I noticed that, in addition to her appearance, she is also a sweet and attentive person. She asked if I was hurt after the fight and looked worried. I assured her that everything was fine. As a result, we had a good time. Despite the fact that we were kicked out of the dance, we still had fun. And I also realized how much I like Mia. That evening I saw her from the other side. On the good side, maybe I started falling in love with her. And I could also tell that her feelings for me were growing too. Besides the pleasure of communicating with Mia, our relationship also developed. I met her family, and she met mine. We did the usual things for a relationship: dinners with her family, events with mine, double dates with Tanner and Anna, and lots of fun, relationship-friendly activities. We also talked about the future. In your first year of study, you started preparing for college, passing a test for admission to higher education institutions, submitting documents, and tours of campuses. In my mind, our relationship was an integral part of the future. Perhaps for Mia, these thoughts were not so serious. I was an only child. My parents and I were very close. Our family wasn't big. My father had one sister who lived not far from us. Mom's family was from the Midwest, and we didn't see much of them. My father had his own insurance agency, John Early Insurance. This summer, I started working in his office from 8 in the morning to noon 3 days a week. On the other 2 days of the work week, I helped out at my Aunt Helen's house. Aunt Helen had never married and lived in my grandparents' old house with a huge plot in what was once a suburb. The boundary of the urban development passed by Helen's lot many years ago. New neighborhoods have sprung up around her. Her house stood in the center of a large plot of several acres. Many developers were interested in this valuable piece of land. Helen wasn't going to sell it. I was close to Aunt Helen, but she was weird. She is constantly, I'm not sure if you can call it a whisper or a purr, but this sound always came from her in a low voice. I was used to it, but it was pretty weird. There was always something to do with all this land. When I showed up to help, she handed me a to-do list for that day. She was always sweet, pleasant, and I could tell she liked me, but she never paid me a cent or thanked me when I finished work. Before she left, she always gave me an ice cream sandwich. That's all. One day, when I came back from Aunt Helen's, I told Dad, "She never pays me anything." "Don't worry, you'll get paid," Dad told me. I was wondering what he meant by that. Between working in my father's office, helping Aunt Helen, and playing soccer on my own, my summer was eventful. But I still had time for Mia. Whenever possible, I tried to see her every night, but usually it worked out several times a week. Looking back, we can say that Mia and I were fine, they just didn't progress. At the end of the summer, before the start of football training, my family went on a 2-week trip to California. We went somewhere every year. I was less excited this year. I would miss Mia. As soon as we returned from vacation, football training began. Tanner and I went to training together, and I realized that we hardly saw each other over the summer. "How is Anna?" I asked him as I was driving home on Monday. "She's history," Tanner told me casually. "What?" I replied. "When it happened, why didn't you tell me why?" I bombarded him with questions. I was shocked by all this. "Take it easy, Max," Tanner chuckled, looking at my confusion. "Hey, we're going to graduate. I didn't want to be tied up in my last year of school," he explained. "But God, Tanner," I said. "Anna is beautiful and so sweet." "She's perfect," I said. "Wow," he said. "Does it look like Max is a little in love with Anna?" He turned and smiled at me. "Tanner," I said, "it's not like that. It's just that you guys looked perfect together. I thought it would be a long time for you and Anna." "Max, we're in high school," he said. "Such school relationships do not last long. There are a lot of girls there. Of course, Anna is wonderful, but we are still too young to settle down. Maybe in 10 years. But not now," he explained. I silently considered his words as we drove home. I was thinking about Tanner and all those girls. I was thinking about Mia and our future. And I was also thinking about the beautiful Anna. I picked Mia up on Saturday night after the first full football week. I haven't had time to be alone with her since my parents, and I went to California. I couldn't wait to spend some time with her. Mia seemed happy to see me, just a little restrained. Perhaps this is a small adaptation after separation, I thought. We drove and chatted about my vacation and going back to school, quite innocently. After I took her home, I couldn't help but think that things were a little off. Maybe we've just been apart too long. Maybe I need to adjust a little, I thought. The following week, I called and tried to get our relationship back to normal. But something was still wrong. I asked her what was the matter. "I was just busy, back at school and all that," she said. "My mom drives me crazy," she added. "I see," I said, but I still felt that something else was wrong. "So, are we ready for Saturday night?" I asked, trying to seal our date. Well, I do not know, she replied. I think so. I'll let you know. And that was the end of it. Before I could ask any more questions, she made some excuse and hung up. We definitely haven't returned to normal life. There was still no word from Mia on Saturday morning. I called once, but there was no response. I decided that I would go straight to her house at the usual time. Her mother opened the door. I've always gotten along with Mrs. Battle. She looked at me with a puzzled expression. Max? She said. Hello, Mrs. Battle, I said. Mia's not at home, Max, she told me. She had a confused expression on her face, as if she wanted to tell me something, thought about it, and decided not to say anything. I'll tell Mia that you came by. And with that, she closed the door. I didn't miss the pitiful expression on her face as the door closed. During my relationship with Mia, we have always been good at one thing: communication. If I wrote to her, she answered quickly. When we talked about problems, difficulties, minor troubles, and similar things, we always discussed them. But now it was different. She was shutting me out. I just sat in the car for a few minutes. The Mia I knew, and who became so close to me, wouldn't treat me like that. We talked about the future. We talked about how to coordinate our college plans. In some cases, we also talked about a future together after college. Career, home, marriage, and even children. Obviously, something was changing. I just didn't know what it was. In the end, I left and went home. I was in a daze. The only thing I told myself I wouldn't do was call her over and over again. As much as I want to know what's going on, I'm not going to be some pathetic, desperate guy who sacrificed his manhood. I told myself that I would not contact her until I heard from her first. I thought through all her actions, signs, and unspoken feelings. Unfortunately, the logical conclusion was that we were breaking up. She just didn't have the decency to formalize the breakup. Our first football game was on Friday against Roosevelt. During training that week, I was in a daze. I wasn't concentrating. I wasn't playing aggressively. I was on the verge of being on the bench. Somehow, I gathered enough energy to continue the game. But with difficulty. We won the match, but the score difference was much closer than it should have been. The Roosevelt was not very good. I definitely didn't play very well. I was supposed to be the brains of the defense. Poor execution on my part contributed to the convergence of the score. Over the next week, I received a minimum of messages from Mia. I'm tired of asking what's going on, are you upset, etc. I promised myself that I wouldn't whine or beg her to talk to me. She just insisted that she was busy. The following week, we lost a football game to the Regis team. We should have beaten them by 2 touchdowns. In fact, last year, we beat them 34-10. No matter how I analyzed the game, my poor performance was the reason for the defeat. Our next opponent was St. Cecilia's School. St. Cecilia's Crusaders were a famous sports giant. It was a private school, and they were recruiting talent. Our team, Washington, had a little rivalry with the Crusaders. I was wondering if Mia would be at the game. Last week, our communication practically stopped. We started, and they scored almost immediately. But then we scored 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. Their attack was led by all-league quarterback Gabriel Dante. Their most productive defender was Michael Amich, the guy I got into a fight with at the Christmas party. Amich was a muscular, straightforward power player. The Crusaders scored early in the second quarter. Our attack could not break through the tough defense of the Crusaders. The quarter was coming to an end, and the Crusaders' attack was gaining momentum. It was the first goal from our 9-yard line. We all thought Dante would pass, but instead it was a draw for Amich. The two of them teamed up against Tanner, so he was out of the game. I saw the show on Amich. I moved with some hesitation to fill the hole. Amich lowered his head when we met and ran right over me for a touchdown. When I was lying on the lawn, a jubilant Amich ran up and stood over me, talking all sorts of nonsense. "Hey, tough guy," he said. "Not so tough anymore. Great tackle. I'm sure Mia enjoyed watching this game. Huh, tough guy," he added with a laugh as his teammates surrounded him. Mia, I thought. What does this have to do with Mia? Break in the locker room, and we lose 21-7. Tanner stood up and addressed the team. "We played like shit in the first half," he proclaimed. "We're better than that. This team is not that good. Focus, and we will win," he continued. "Don't let this team run over us." And with that statement, he looked right at me. I lowered my head, unable to look into his eyes. The meaning was clear. Amich literally ran over me. Just as we were preparing to leave the locker room to start the second half, Tanner grabbed me and pulled me aside. "Max, you need to get your head out of your ass and focus," he told me. I started nodding in passive agreement. This time he pushed me towards the lockers and looked me straight in the eye. "You know Mia's back with Amich," Tanner told me. "He wants to humiliate you in front of her. Now you have a choice. You can be in love and feel sorry for yourself, or you can let Amich know that he's participating in a fucking football match. Max, you're the smartest guy I know. Focus your fucking mind." And with that, he joined the team on the field. His words are deeply embedded in my brain. I moped while Mia went back to Michael Amich. And then Amich runs up to me and mocks me. And all I did was feel sorry for myself. A new emotion blossomed deep inside me as I ran out for the second half. It was anger. Anger at myself, anger at the Crusaders, anger at Amich, but most of all at Mia. At the beginning of the second half, we scored immediately, but then it began to seem that none of the teams could support attacking actions. About the middle of the third quarter, I saw that the Crusaders were lined up in an unusual arrangement. I remembered her from the video of the game. I quickly told Nat, our corner linebacker, to stay one-on-one with Perkins, their outfield receiver. "I'll cover the flat, an area of the field extending 10 yards into the defensive backfield from the line of scrimmage and extending beyond," I told him. He looked at me, wide-eyed, and nodded. When Perkins and Nat flew past me, I accelerated and moved towards the flat. And so, as on film, Amich goes flat. Dante's pass was a little high, and Amich had to bounce a little, but he caught the ball. Meanwhile, I was rapidly approaching him from my position as a free defender. Everything slowed down, even though I was moving at full speed. I've seen Amich jump and watch the ball as it moves to catch it. My instinct told me to hit lower. Last time, he flew over me when I hit him high. I won't do that anymore. I saw his left foot firmly planted on the turf. All the weight fell on this foot with boots, holding it for that short moment. I rushed forward, head and shoulders, at full speed, towards that grounded left foot. He didn't stand a chance. The first sound I heard was the cracking of bone and the crunching of cartilage, followed by Amich's scream. Amich lost his balance, and I quickly picked up the ball and ran 57 yards, 52 meters, earning a touchdown. As I was jogging towards my cheering teammates, I looked into the Street Cecilia grandstand. I saw dark-haired Mia looking at me with tears in her eyes. I couldn't help but smile at her. Amich was carried off the field on a stretcher. It seemed to take the life out of the Crusaders. The final score was 35-24, in favor of Washington. When we lined up to shake hands, there were several angry comments. Last in line was a guy who I knew was Amich's buddy. I couldn't help myself. I was still so angry. "Hey, Jordan," I said to my friend Amich. "Tell Michael that I hope he gets better soon," I said with obvious fake sincerity. "Go to hell," was all the guy said. Despite my bravado during the game, I was deeply hurt by Mia's betrayal. I had a terrible feeling that it would be a long time before everything would get better. It is said that the opposite of love is indifference. But not for me. It was hate. My senior year at school seemed to fly by, as did my 4 years in college. I always planned to work with my father in an insurance office. I specialized in finance. Many of my friends and classmates changed their major during college. I knew what I was going to do, and there was a certain satisfaction in it. During all my time at school and college, I never got a serious girlfriend. The experience with Mia scarred me. I was betrayed. I put so much emotion and energy into our relationship, and then she cheated on me. She didn't even have the decency to properly break up with me. I've learned not to trust women. I never talked to her to find out what happened. Tanner briefly told me that in the summer he and Amich started talking, and then everything went on as usual. I couldn't understand it. That's probably why I didn't have a serious relationship with anyone in college. I was afraid of the pain of betrayal. The only satisfaction I got was the realization that I completely blew Michael Amich's chances of playing college football. I caught a glimpse of him once, and he walked with a limp. Good. Speaking of college football, Tanner got a scholarship to play football at a small college in Texas. We didn't talk much in college, but when we did, It was like the good old days. Tanner decided to specialize in construction management. I got my bachelor's degree in finance and threw myself into my work. My father had a solid business, and I started making connections with some of his clients. I was hardworking, sincere, and tried to be individual. I saw that I had a very good future at John Early Insurance. And then tragedy came to our family. At the age of just under 60, one April night, Aunt Helen died quietly in her sleep. Her heart failed. It was a sad time for us. We weren't a big family. On holidays and celebrations, it was usually just Mom and Dad, Aunt Helen and me. Now her strange, quirky personality, which we all loved, was missing. A few weeks after her death, Dad and I met with Helen's lawyer. For some reason, Dad insisted that I accompany him to this meeting. Helen had a small investment account that she left to my father, but the surprise in her will was that her house and all 9.7 acres of prime real estate went to me. To say that I was shocked is an understatement. As we were leaving the law office, my father put his arm around my shoulders and said, "Do you remember telling me once that Aunt Helen never paid you for all your help?" He asked. I nodded in the affirmative. "Well, son, I think you've just been paid," he told me. I inherited not only the house and the land, but all of Aunt Helen's belongings. Now I was evaluating the house from a completely different point of view. It had always been Aunt Helen's house before, with flowered curtains, china cabinets, and lace napkins. He was mine now. It was far from a bachelor's home. I had a job. I was busy between owning a house and working at an insurance agency. One thing I noticed at work was that my father continued to do everything the same as he had for the last 25 years. Times in the financial products industry were changing rapidly. And although Dad would most likely keep his clients until retirement, in order for the business to succeed and grow, we had to be ready for change. One of the first things I did was a thorough inspection of our office. It's outdated. Old wide beige Venetian blinds hung on the windows. On the glass front door hung a small cardboard clock with movable hands that signaled our time. Straight out of the 60s. One of the important things that I thought was important was a positive first impression. The landscaping in front of the front door was very outdated. A large square of dust crust in front of the entrance, separated by a cracked cement walkway. A sagging porch with outdated wooden railings. Two shiny brass colonial-style lanterns hung on either side of the front door. None of them were pointing straight up. It all looked old-fashioned and cheap. This was the first thing I had to do to upgrade the business. We needed a different first impression. I called several landscape architects to take a look, express their thoughts, and propose their project. To my surprise, when the second of the three representatives of the Landscape Bureau came to our first meeting, I saw that it was Anna Dubois, Mia's school friend. At first, I was amazed to see her. The whole negative experience with Mia flashed through my mind. I immediately felt uneasy. I felt myself blushing when we met face to face. "Max, oh my God," she said. "Is that really you?" She asked with genuine warmth. Ignoring my outstretched hand, she wrapped me in a very pleasant hug. I immediately began to relax. I remembered the kindness that Anna showed when we were teenagers. "How are you?" "What is it?" she asked. "You look great. So this is your business?" She bombarded me with questions. We spent a few minutes trying to catch up. She graduated from the Faculty of Architecture and studied for a master's degree in landscape architecture. She had an apartment in the city and worked full-time as a designer at GL2 Architecture. I briefly told her about my work, but quickly changed the subject to our office and some of my ideas about what I would like to do for our front door. Anna seemed a little surprised that I switched to business so quickly. She asked a few questions, made some notes, and said she would have some preliminary sketches for me by Friday. "I was so glad to see you, Max," she told me with a big smile on her face. "I'll call you at the end of the week." One more short hug and she was gone. Overall, Anna looked even better than in high school. The same beautiful face and the same beautiful body, I thought. Carefully, I told myself, the memories of my experience with Mia were no longer fresh, but they were still strong. The first architect came with a huge estimate, and I excluded him from the list. The third postponed the meeting. I was hoping that Anna had a good project that would fit into our budget. On Thursday afternoon, she called. "I have a couple of ideas for your entrance," Anna told me. "Okay, great," I said. "I'm looking forward to seeing them." Do you want to meet me for lunch tomorrow? What is it? She asked. We could meet at the Bluebird at any time convenient for you, she suggested. I hesitated. I know it's a business meeting, but I thought it was a date. Although it's not that I don't go on dates at all. Rather, her connection with Mia seemed too close to me. I think she sensed my wariness and quickly put in, or I can come to your office if you want, she said. No, I said. Can I have lunch tomorrow at, say, 12:30? I asked. She agreed to this time, and we agreed to meet for lunch. I was experiencing a mixture of emotions that evening. Anger at Mia has not subsided until now. Somehow, Anna became associated with this anger in my brain. Another thought was the hope that her projects were acceptable and within our budget. And the last lingering thought, Anna was beautiful, and I enjoyed her company. Alarm bells rang. When we met at the Bluebird Bistro, she looked even better. She seemed to have taken extra time to look good. I'm sure her looks helped solidify the business for GL2. And again, a warm hug and greeting. We skipped the small talk and moved on to her projects. The first idea was good, quite simple. The second one was a bit Asian style. I liked. Now about the cost. The first option turned out to be slightly less than the budget, but the Asian design exceeded our maximum budget by $10,000. I told her that I needed to think about it. The food arrived just then, and we started talking, but not specifically about business. She asked where I lived, and I told her the story about Aunt Helen and my inheritance. She seemed genuinely interested in my life situation. She knew about this piece of land. Later, she asked about my weekend plans. I do either the house or the yard on weekends, depending on the weather, I told her. When the weather is good, like this weekend, I spend most of Saturday and Sunday outside. I love gardens and plants, she told me. It must be fun to have so much land. I've described the work on my site many times, I told her, but I've never called it fun. I added with a laugh. Well, I'd love to see that, she said. Maybe one day I'll surprise you and drop by. The next day, Saturday, as I told Anna, I spent the whole day working in the yard. There was so much work to do. Aunt Helen has created a formal English garden on most of the site. Sculptural hedges, rose gardens, and plant plantings. I wasn't sure what I wanted, but Aunt Helen's style seemed too old-fashioned to me. It must have been the middle of the day when I saw dust rising up the driveway, signaling a visitor. Most likely it would have been my mom or dad, but I knew they were out of town. To my surprise, it was Anna. I immediately assessed myself, unshaven, dirty, sweaty, and shirtless. I greeted her and immediately reached for my shirt. You didn't have to wear it for me, she said. I was just admiring the scenery, she added with a laugh. I looked at her, trying to figure out what she meant. The first thought that flashed through my mind was, wow, she's really working hard to get this landscaping contract. I pushed that thought aside and politely gave her a big tour of the site. She seemed genuinely interested. I pointed out what I needed to do, and she made some suggestions that seemed like good ideas to me. So what have you been working on? What is it? She asked. I told her, and she didn't hesitate to help me with my current work. I appreciated her help, but I couldn't help but wonder about her motivation. It seemed to me that she was doing everything possible to get a contract. We worked like this, side by side, for several hours. It was a very comfortable environment. I had to admit that I enjoyed her company. Towards the end of the day, she said she had to go, but lingered, as if waiting for some kind of invitation from me. I thanked her warmly, showed her the bathroom to wash her face, and then she left with some reluctance. That evening, all my thoughts were with Anna. She was beautiful and so sweet, but she was once friends with Mia. For me, it was a huge giveaway sign. Next week we discussed the landscaping proposal. I told her that we like Asian-themed design more, but it's beyond the budget. I hinted that we had other offers that we didn't have. By the end of the week, she returned with minor changes to the original design and with a new cost exceeding the budget by only $2,000. We agreed. She said they could start work in 3 weeks. We need to celebrate, she said. Ha, ha, ha. I laughed evasively. Have a nice weekend, I told her. She seemed a little discouraged that I didn't support the idea of celebrating. It was another warm weekend, and I was working on my site. And again, on Saturday afternoon, Anna appeared. This time with a picnic basket. Can you take this inside? She asked, handing me the basket. What are we working on now? I told her, and she got to work. At the end of the day, she asked me to bring a picnic basket and a corkscrew. She spread a tablecloth on the ground. She prepared a mini feast and brought a bottle of Oregon Pinot Noir. We had a pleasant evening, and I really enjoyed talking to her. It seemed that we had a lot in common. I also started to think that since we had already signed a contract with GL2, her firm, there was no reason for her to continue being nice if that was the only goal. We continued these casual meetings over the next few weeks. She either came to the office for information on our design project or stopped by on weekends and helped me around the house. We continued to meet, and our friendship grew. However, so far nothing romantic. She didn't take any steps, and I didn't. Even though a big part of me wanted to, there was a nagging reminder of Mia's betrayal, warning me that I might get hurt. It was Friday evening. I left the office around 6 o'clock. I went home and did an evening 5-mile, 8 kilometers, run. While I was thinking about dinner, my cell phone rang. It was Anna. "Hi, Anna," I said. Loud conversations and music could be heard in the background. When I got no answer, I asked, "Hello. Do you have a girlfriend?" Anna replied slightly indistinctly. "Eh," I replied. At that moment, I heard a rustle, then another voice in the background, and then on the phone. "Hi, Max. My name is Lindsay. I'm Anna's friend," she said. "She had a little too much alcohol and talked about going to your place, but she shouldn't drive. Can you come to the Palantino and pick her up?" "What is it?" she asked. I told her I could. After quickly cleaning myself up, I headed to the city center. Palantino has a very good restaurant and bar. A little too good to be a pickup bar, more of a dating establishment. I found them and met Lindsay. She was quite attractive, but then Anna came along. In my eyes, she was a goddess, no comparison. Anna was slightly drunk and apologized for calling. I ordered a beer and Lindsay left quickly. Only Anna and I are left. After staying at the Palantino for only a few minutes, she asked me, "Can we go to your house?" I agreed, and we left. We drove up to the house, and I mentally assessed its condition. I knew it still looked like an elderly single woman lived in it. I hadn't managed to do anything inside yet. All my strength was directed outward. Anna didn't seem to care. It was unclear to me where this conversation would lead. Anna, slightly tipsy, asked if I liked her, and I replied that of course I did. She asked if I had a girlfriend, and I said no. "I don't want to sound vain," she said, "but guys usually like me." "But it doesn't look like you," she told me. I assured her that she was very attractive. Then she asked why I hadn't asked her out. I took a deep breath and talked about my insecurities related to my high school relationship with Mia. We talked about it for a while, and then she started talking about Tanner. "I know he's your friend, and he can be fun," she said, "but he can be a jerk. I've learned to stay away from such self-centered types. I'm much better off with a different type of man." She said that and looked me straight in the eye. There was silence for a moment as she looked at me, and my head was spinning. It was all good. I was hoping. At that moment, she left to go to the toilet. I was sitting in thought and thinking about what the next step should be. I shouldn't have worried. The next step became quite obvious when she returned. She was naked, and she was beautiful. I remember looking at Playboy magazines as a teenager, seeing these beautiful women and dreaming of touching them. It's like wanting to fly or become invisible, impossible, but still worth it. It was a bit like that. I remember the first time I saw Anna, how beautiful she was, and what a gorgeous body she had. And now, years later, having escaped from my fantasies, she is here. Like opposing magnets, I was drawn to her with an unconscious force. I wrapped my arms around her and kissed her. She started taking off my shirt, and I started taking off my trousers. My hands explored her body. I felt like a kid visiting Disneyland for the first time, attracted to everything and trying to experience it all at once. Hand in hand, we silently went to my bedroom and lay down. I tried to understand what women like and want. I wanted to give Anna great pleasure. We have started a new chapter in our relationship. The intimacy flowed into other parts of our relationship. I was careful at first. Obviously, my teenage breakup never went away from my psyche, but we talked about it. Anna knew. And the fact that she and Mia had been close all this time gave her additional information. And sometimes I felt insecure because this beautiful, sweet woman chose me. One evening, when I was alone, I carefully examined myself in the mirror. I was 6 feet, 183 centimeters tall. I was in pretty good shape. I was doing sports. I had all my hair, and to be honest, my face was not bad, bordering on ordinary. Anna made a lot of effort to calm me down. I had moments of uncertainty, but they were getting fewer and fewer. We got along great. It seems that we had similar goals and objectives in life. But some small part of my brain was stubbornly waiting for a tragedy to happen someday. I tried my best, but it was difficult to completely get rid of these thoughts. I have already mentioned that throughout my adult life, I have not had many girlfriends. But that doesn't mean I was a recluse. I've had my share of hobbies, and I studied female pleasure among these hobbies after graduation. I satisfied Anna, and she was everything I wanted or needed. I felt that my life was going in the right direction in several ways. The business was fine. I tried to transform our business without interrupting or changing all the positive things that brought success to my father. My house was being transformed. Anna loved working there. She especially enjoyed gardening, planting plants, landscaping, and decorating open spaces. More than once, she begged me never to sell this valuable and unique piece of land that she was transforming. And of course, my relationship with Anna was great. The small, uncertain voices of doubt turned into a rare whisper. Anna continued to assure me of her love. There was one thing I was putting off, but I knew what I had to do. I needed to call Tanner. I had to tell him about my relationship with Anna. I knew it had been almost 9 years since they had been together, but there was a kind of murky male code that we had to follow to some extent. I was dating his ex-girlfriend. As far as I know, there is no statute of limitations. I should have called him. Tanner lived in Texas. He went to work for a large real estate development company in the Houston area. In my infrequent conversations with him, it looked like things were going well. He claimed that he liked Texas, but he was not averse to returning to the Pacific Northwest someday. I called. After a few minutes, I started talking about the reason for my call. Tanner, I began. I'd like to talk to you about something, I said. There was a pause. He was silent. Well, I wanted to let you know that I have a relationship with Anna, I told him. Do boys? He exclaimed after a pause. There was disbelief in the tone. Yes, with Anna from St. Cecilia's, I said. There was silence on the line at first, and then I heard a chuckle coming from Tanner. Well, congratulations, he said. She's a great girl. Dude, I'm proud of you. I know you've been shy about women for a while. We talked for a few more minutes, and his easy acceptance of my relationship with Anna dispelled all my fears. When we finished talking, he said, I'll have to get up and visit you all soon. All of you? It looked like Texas was starting to grow closer to Tanner. Months passed, and our relationship seemed to continue to develop. Anna took up gardening and landscaping in my house. We worked side by side to change the whole atmosphere of this place. We were a team working together. I was thinking about making an offer, and discussing the matter with Tanner seemed to remove one of the obstacles. Now that everything was done, did I have any doubts? My trust issues have practically disappeared. Anna's assurances that she had feelings for me extinguished any remaining insecurities in me. I started looking for the ring. One of the byproducts of a business like insurance is that you meet a lot of people. You also need to sell yourself to these people. It was always nice when I really liked the person I was doing business with. One of my new friends/clients was a man a little older than me, named Greg Boston. I first met Greg when I was his client. He was building a work shed for me on my property. One evening, when he finished work, we had a beer and started talking. I told him about my business, and eventually he became my client. More importantly, he became a good friend of mine. Greg was moving from small-scale home renovation work, as he did for me, to building houses. In our area, the key to the success of the builder was the land suitable for construction. Greg kept asking me in a good-natured manner if I ever wanted to sell the land. I politely refused. In the end, I proposed, and a happy, delighted Anna agreed. Now we had to do the wedding business. Anna and her mom did most of this work. I became so friendly with Greg that I asked him to be my best man. I asked Tanner to be my witness. One day, while planning a wedding, Anna and I were in the barn that Greg had built. She turned to me with a serious expression on her face. Max, I need to talk to you about something, she told me. Oh, what now? I nodded at her silently. It's about the guest list. And Mia, she said. A wave of relief washed over me, and I thought it was something serious. I have to invite Mia and her husband, she told me. I've known Mia almost all my life. She's not going to be a bridesmaid or anything, just a guest. She said this while staring at me intently. I thought for a moment. I knew that Anna was still friendly, if not friendly with Mia. I also knew that Mia married that asshole Michael Amich. And I also knew that their friendship had weakened, mainly because Anna knew how much I disliked Mia. I've discovered one more thing. When Anna didn't want to answer a question, she answered a question with a question. I first suspected this when she was out with friends one evening. When she returned home, I asked her who she was with. Why do you want to know? She replied. I suspected Mia was in the group of friends. I ignored it because I knew she was trying to protect me. But this feature was worth noting. I paused a little and said, of course, she's your old friend. I understand that she must be present. I followed a wide path. Thank you, she said and kissed me hard. I hugged her back, and then she started walking away towards the sink to continue what she was working on. I followed her. I started stroking her back while she was working in the sink. She was wearing a thin, braless t-shirt and black running shorts, typical clothes for working in the yard. She moaned with pleasure as I stroked her back tightly. I picked up the thin t-shirt and continued to rub her smooth olive skin. She stopped her studies, leaned forward, closed her eyes, and enjoyed the massage. Quickly and decisively, I pulled off her shorts. Max, what are you doing? She exclaimed with a half-hearted protest. One of the features of weddings in our time was that you were constantly supplied with everything you needed for the wedding. Decorations for cakes, veils, ribbons, and more. Mostly from Amazon. And so, in the midst of our pleasure, one appeared in the barn. I saw a truck with a phallic logo coming down our road. I didn't stop. I continued. Anna, closing her eyes, did not know about the delivery that had arrived. And at that moment, the driver had no idea what was going on in the garden shed. But now he's parked. He rummaged in the truck, took out the right package, and went to put it on the porch. And then he saw how Anna was being used. He stopped where he was. He looked away for a minute, then couldn't help but stare. I didn't blame him. She was just great. After a few moments, Anna noticed the visitor, gasped, covered herself, and broke away from our intercourse. She quickly moved away from the window, out of sight. A minute later, we heard a truck driving away. Max, the courier, saw us. She exclaimed. Didn't you see him? What is it? She asked. Well, sort of, I replied. Why didn't you stop? A logical question. I think for 2 reasons, I said. She looked at me in a puzzled way, for some reason still covering her chest. First of all, I really liked what I was doing, and you seem to like it too, I told her. Secondly, I was thinking about the driver. The driver? She exclaimed. Yes. I thought what a boring job he had. And I thought that if I were in his place, what a pleasant surprise it would be to see a beautiful woman being used, I told her. And he looked like he appreciated it. I see, Anna replied. She threw off the covers, turned to face me, and without saying another word, went back into the house. The wedding was wonderful. We played it on our territory. The gardens and grounds looked fantastic. Anna did a great job with landscaping and was proud of the work she had done. The wedding gave her the opportunity to show how she transformed everything. There were several people among the guests who deserved attention. The first was Tanner, my good school friend and Anna's ex-boyfriend. Tanner's outgoing personality quickly dispelled all the awkwardness associated with Anna and Tanner's long-term friendship. Speaking of character, despite the fact that he was wearing a tuxedo, the Texan influence was obvious. Along with the tuxedo, he wore a Stetson hat and black cowboy boots. I lost count of the number of times he said, "All of you." But he succeeded in the image. I'd forgotten how funny Tanner can be. He also brought a companion with him, a stunning blonde, with a hint of some kind of European accent. Her name was Greta St. Kitts. She was great. And although I thought my Anna was beautiful, I hate to say it, but next to Greta she looked a little plain. And then I realized that I had to greet Mia and Michael. I've avoided all contact and talking about them since high school. Congratulations, buddy, Amish said to me and held out his hand. Thanks, Michael, I said, and shook his outstretched hand. Mia came over to hug me. I quickly extended my hand in greeting. She hesitated for a moment and then shook my hand. You look great, Mia, I said in greeting. She looked at me with a mixture of embarrassment and uncertainty about my sincerity. She opened her mouth to say something, looked around and said nothing. What kind of business do you do? Amish asked me. I briefly told him about my insurance agency and then felt obligated to reciprocate the question. It was a mistake. For almost 15 minutes, Amish talked about his work and how well he was doing it. He worked in real estate management for a company I've heard of, Winegrass Properties. I remembered his friendship with Jordan Winegrass from high school. The company had a dubious reputation as slum owners who used, at best, unethical methods to acquire real estate. Michael didn't say anything about it. Jordan's father, Sidney, was the owner. Come by sometime, Amish told me. Maybe you can save us some money on insurance. And he handed me a business card. I nodded in confirmation, knowing full well that I didn't want to have anything to do with Amish or the Winegrasses for the world. Another guest I should mention is our secretary at the insurance office, Yasmin Reynosa. She was wonderful, hardworking, with a slight accent, and was just over 5 feet, 1.5 meters, tall. She has worked with us for almost 2 years and has become invaluable to the company. I never met her husband. I saw him a couple of times when he picked her up after work and waved, but that was it. Yasmin introduced me to her husband, Angel. If I had to guess just by looking at him, I would say that Angel Reynosa might be in a gang. Tattoos covered his arms and slid down his neck. He also had a stern look, but the conversation was very polite. Where are you going on your honeymoon? Angel asked. I told him we were going to Hawaii. He seemed genuinely interested and started asking me about the trip. I told him a little bit about where we were going and what we were going to do. While we were talking, he hugged the petite Yasmin. Someday, baby, he said to Yasmin, I'll take you there. He said it with such sincerity that it touched me. The rest of the wedding went great. We had a good time, and the guests seemed to be happy too. We spent our honeymoon, as I told Reynosa, in Hawaii and had a great time. It was over, and we went back to normal life. Only now I was married. Our married life was wonderful. We both worked full-time. We have developed a small plan for the house and grounds. If anything, Anna seemed to be more motivated than I was to get to the bottom of the matter and do the work that needed to be done while we were transforming Aunt Helen's old house. After the wedding, the photographer we hired asked us to come and take some pictures of the territory. He was impressed. He explained that they were preparing an article for the Sunday newspaper and were looking for unique landscapes. Anna was delighted with this. Besides, it was a free advertisement for her and her landscape architecture firm GL2. Anna spent every free hour before the photo shoot working on the gardens. When the photo shoot was published in the Sunday newspaper, Anna appeared in 2 photographs. Her photogenic beauty, I suppose, was one of the reasons for her appearance. She was also quoted several times in a newspaper article. She seemed to be a natural at working with the media. Another event happened in our lives, about a year after the wedding. Tanner moved back in. He told me how he had succeeded in Texas, working for a large firm. It seemed to him that he would be able to bring some of his experience to the Pacific Northwest and create his own company. He called it Texas Pacific. Tanner rented an expensive office space in the city center. He hired an attractive secretary. He furnished the office in a high-end, elite style. He once told me that in order to be successful, you need to look successful. I agreed to some extent, but Tanner was on the verge of shocking. Tanner became a part of Anna and me. Tanner was single. Glamorous Greta Street Kits and Tanner were no longer together. I had moments of jealousy, but for the most part, I was quite comfortable when Tanner, Anna, and I were together. I also became Tanner's insurance agent. I insured his personal property as well as his business. Tanner fell into the category of customers with a high level of service. I kept calling him because he had to pay the insurance premium. Several times I had to go to his office and ask him to write me a check so that I could make sure that he was insured. I had to keep an eye on everything all the time. It wasn't my job, but I was doing it for Tanner. If you miss a payment, your insurance will be gone. One evening, Anna, Tanner, and I were at our house. sipping wine and talking about our professional and life goals. I like helping people make the right financial choices in their lives, I said. I don't think I'll ever get rich, but I love what I do. And I love seeing the people I've helped become successful. I am satisfied with a pleasant, quiet life. After a minute, Anna said, someday I want to open my own landscaping company. I want to be known in society. I want to have designs that people demonstrate and talk about. I guess I want to be famous in some way. She laughed a little when she said it, but I knew she was serious. After a few minutes, Tanner spoke up. I'm a little different from both of you, he said, and he spoke in a very uncharacteristically sincere voice. I want to earn so much money that I don't have to do things that I don't want to do. I want to have a big jackpot. I want to know that I can leave the business at any time I want, and that this does not affect my lifestyle. That's what I want. I watched Tanner in silence, and even though we were good friends, I realized how different we were. Months passed, and the months turned into years. I often thought about that impromptu conversation about goals that took place between Tanner, Anna, and me that June evening. I felt that although my goals might not have been so high, I was achieving them. Things were going well at the insurance agency. My dad worked 20 to 30 hours a week. He showed up around 9 in the morning with a newspaper. I continued to attract new customers and was constantly thinking about business expansion ideas. Anna was also working on her goals. Less than a year ago, she left GL2 and became independent. Thanks to a little extra work by my friend, Greg Boston, the barn turned into a full-fledged office. Yes, the very shed where I used Anna in front of the courier. I often make fun of her about this and have successfully recreated this scene more than once. The barn stands among the many garden designs she has created on my property. For Anna and her business, it has become a great place to showcase her landscape skills. She signed several landscaping contracts in our backyard while the client was roaming the grounds. That left Tanner. From what I saw, Tanner was doing well. He was always active and constantly worked on some projects or developments. From my business dealings with him, I knew that at times his cash flows became quite unstable. As I have already described, I constantly had to remind him that he needed to pay a premium. I wouldn't call it disorganized, rather, just highly leveraged. But I knew his purpose. He wanted a big deal. One evening in the middle of May, he called me and offered to meet me for a drink. He wanted to talk to me about something. Let's meet at Evergreen around 6 in the evening, he told me. Evergreen was a good bar and restaurant designed for a young, partying audience. Not my choice, but it was okay. Max, how are you? He hugged me in greeting, and we sat down. I knew Tanner well enough to know that he was in his aggressive salesman's way. I knew he wanted something, but I just didn't know what it was yet. Maybe I have the deal of a lifetime, he began, rubbing his palms together. It's a little difficult, but it's guaranteed to pay off. I wanted to give you the opportunity to participate in the deal, Max. I had no doubt that Tanner considered me a good friend, but I had spent enough time with him to realize that participating in this deal was not evidence of our friendship. He needed something from me. Tanner told me that he has an option on a valuable piece of real estate on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. The widow of one of the executives of the firm he worked for in Texas owned the site and was thinking about selling it. Apparently, Tanner had become friends with her and always told her that if she wanted to sell the land, she should ask him first. He seems to have charmed the elderly widow. Now she was offering the land to Tanner. She wants $1 million for the land, he told me excitedly. It should cost 2 or 3 times more. It is located on a beautiful sandy beach. When we build something, we'll get at least $5 million for a house on the shore, he explained. He took out a folder and showed me photos of this bare piece of land overgrown with shrubs and palm trees. The blue-green sea sparkled in the background. I could definitely see how special this property was. I can take out a few loans and raise $500,000 with the money I have, Tanner told me. If you invest $500,000, we can buy a 50-50 property. I will prepare some high-quality marketing materials. We will sell the beach property, and in at least a year your money will double. A maximum of 18 months. His eyes assessed my reaction. His enthusiasm was contagious to some extent. I sat for a while and thought. He continued to add convincing comments while I considered his proposal. Tanner, I began. Wow, you caught me off guard. It's a really great property, but $500,000 is a lot of money. I don't have the opportunity to receive such an amount immediately. It's going to take a lot of collateral, I told him, all the while he was nodding his head, trying to convey his excitement to me. He talked for a few more minutes about the deal, the property, and the profits. In the end, I told him that I needed to talk to Anna and think about everything. Tanner was on a roll for the rest of the evening. He was enthusiastic about everything. He was in serious sales mode. "Max," he exclaimed, "you're my best friend. We've known each other for a long time. I sincerely believe that it will be good for us." I said I would contact him tomorrow, but it was funny that the more he convinced me, the more I was afraid to enter into any kind of partnership with Tanner. Later that evening, I told Anna about Tanner's proposal. She was curious about it. Anyway, she was a little more interested in this opportunity than I was. I had mixed feelings, and the more I thought about it, the less inspired I became. I would have slept with that. By the middle of the morning, for many reasons, I decided to refuse the offer to invest money in real estate. There were two main reasons. I was too conservative in my investment philosophy. And the second reason is that I was worried that it might harm my friendship with Tanner in the long run if problems arose. I texted Tanner and asked if he would like to meet for lunch. He agreed. I knew he would be disappointed when I told him no, but I wasn't prepared for him to be disappointed. He got angry. "It's a sure thing," he told me. "How can you give up $500,000 in profit?" Friendliness has long disappeared. Now he doubted my intelligence and common sense. Finally, he played his last card. He questioned my friendship. When I tried to explain that I was worried about how this deal might affect our friendship, he rejected my arguments. The more excited he became about my refusal to join his deal, the more confident I was that I had made the right decision. "Tanner," I finally told him, "if this is such a sure thing as you describe, then, of course, you will have many more willing to cooperate with you." He just stared at me. I could tell that my words made him angry. I just didn't know why. "Even Anna thinks it's a good deal," he told me. "Anna?" I said. "Have you talked about this with Anna?" Since when does he talk to Anna about such things? An emotion flared up in my brain, which I thought I had finished with a long time ago. Jealousy. He tried to explain that he wanted to get landscape ideas from her for the proposed site. I thought. I'll have to listen to Anna. When we came out, it was far from the enthusiastic warmth of the previous evening. There was a small gap between our friendship now. It will be interesting to see how it all turns out. Weeks have passed. Anna told me that she talked to Tanner about this site, and he asked her about tropical landscaping. She was happy to share her ideas for the project with him. She said she hadn't worked with tropical design before, and she was interested. She told me that she thinks investing in land is a good deal, but she also understands why I refused. Gradually, over the course of several weeks, my friendship with Tanner was restored to some extent. We were running a joint business, so we needed to talk. I never asked him about the project, but it seemed to me that he was somehow advancing this plan. One day I went to his office to pick up another almost overdue bonus check. I saw a glossy brochure with a picture of a magnificent tropical house. I could tell it was on that beautiful stretch of beach on Kauai. While I was looking at her, Tanner came out of his office. He told me that he has an interested party in this house. He told me that he personally raised the money, took out a loan, and bought land on Kauai. He said he had almost completed the construction of a large rustic cedar house on a large plot in wine country, California wine region. As soon as he finishes work on it, he will temporarily move to Kauai to begin construction of the estate in about a month. I asked about the sale of the Kauai estate. "It's going to sell for $5.5 million, he told me. "Wow, $5.5 million. I exclaimed. "Who is the buyer?" I asked. "Actually, he's a local guy," Tanner said. "Do you know Sydney Winegrass?" Yes, I knew who Sydney Winegrass was. That freak Michael Amich works for him. He didn't have a very good reputation, but I assumed he was rich. "Tanner," I said, "be careful what you do with Winegrass. I've heard some not-so-good things about him and his business." "Max," Tanner said, "don't worry, I know Sid. We did business together. He's a great guy." Tanner dismissed my concerns. A few days later, Anna came and said that she had a new client. Tanner. She explained that she would create a design for the seaside house he was building in Kauai. "I'm thrilled about it," she said. "I've always wanted to do a tropical project." What will it take from you? I asked. Most of the work will be done in my office. But I hope that in October, when I need to be there, you and I can have a second honeymoon. And it will be deducted from taxes, she told me. It actually sounded great, especially in October in the Pacific Northwest, when rain, wind, and cold seem to be a constant part of life. A warm tropical vacation sounds wonderful, and I'd like to see this house. Besides, I felt it would be good for our relationship. Revive them. A week later, Anna burst in to tell me another potentially good news story. One of the local TV stations, KPL, wanted to add a weekly program about the garden, and they wanted to talk to Anna about hosting it. Life seemed to be moving in a positive direction for both Anna and me. Everything was fine, although I started to feel a bit like Anna, and my bond wasn't as strong. I explained it by saying that we were both busy. One evening, Tanner, Anna, and I went for a walk. Tanner was supposed to leave for Kauai in the next few days. We discussed our second honeymoon/working vacation in October, when we will see Tanner's place of work. Tanner talked a little about the finances associated with the purchase of a plot and the construction of a house on the beach in Kauai. It was difficult. I couldn't keep track of it all and wondered how legitimate it all was. It looks like he was mixing the funds. The money for the completion of the cottage in the wine country could go to pay for part of the estate in Kauai. It was difficult and, to say the least, unethical. The way I've arranged it, he told us, when we close the Kauai real estate deal, I should get almost $4 million after taxes. He smiled and leaned back in his chair. I hoped that he would succeed, but I doubted it. After listening to him, I had no doubt about one thing: my decision not to enter into a partnership with him to buy this property. When we broke up with Tanner and were driving home, I expressed some of my concerns about Tanner's risky deal. Can't you just be happy for him? Anna said, just because he's risking more than you doesn't mean he's doing the wrong thing. I didn't say anything. It was a surprise to me that she defended Tanner. A few months later, Anna was interviewed by KPL, a local TV channel that was looking for a gardening specialist to host a weekly program on Fridays. The idea was to get local garden centers to sponsor the show and encourage homeowners to plan garden projects for the coming weekend. She was nervous and worried. Anna looked great and was photogenic, and this should have played in her favor. She also had all the beautiful gardens on my property, which she created to serve as a backdrop for her weekly gardening tips. She also had a barn/office that could be converted into a makeshift studio. Yes, the same building where I once used Anna in front of an Amazon driver. For some reason, I always remembered that pleasant experience when I thought about this barn. In early September, she was contacted by KPAL and offered a contract to host the weekly program in the garden with Anna, starting from the end of November until the holidays, and then resuming it at the end of winter. Anna was delighted. She not only received a salary from KPL, but also free advertising for her landscaping company, Distinctive Gardens. All of this was great news. I felt that a lot of her energy had been focused on her career lately, and that was only fair. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but think that less of her energy was focused on us right now. We started discussing our trip to Kauai. Anna was in correspondence with Tanner about the oceanfront construction project in Kauai. Things seemed to be progressing, but perhaps not as smoothly as Tanner had anticipated. I wasn't really sure how often she talked to Tanner, but I went into her office a few times when she was talking to him, and what I heard sounded less like a business conversation. It's more like a small talk. We were supposed to leave on Friday and stay the following weekend, 8 days at the Sheraton Hotel in Kauai. I was looking forward to the break. I think we needed a good vacation to get our relationship back on track. My dad and Yasmin will take care of everything while I'm gone. I knew that Yasmin would be in good hands. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, a disaster occurred. My father had a heart attack. He was at home, and he started having chest pains. Mom called me and the 911 service. An ambulance took my father to St. Luke's Hospital. Anna and I met my mother at the hospital. Dad was conscious, but in pain. We stayed with him for a few minutes before his nurse escorted us out. Later, we met with a cardiologist, and he said that my dad would stay in the hospital for a few days, and then he would observe bed rest at home. Both Anna and I knew what that meant. There was no trip to Kauai for me. Not only did I have to support my parents, but I also had to be in the office for a week. Anna said she would stay at home too, but we both knew she needed to be there to keep an eye on the landscaping. I was busy with my father. We both decided that she should go, and then try to get home as soon as possible. We will celebrate the second honeymoon at another time. My father was still in the hospital when I drove Anna to the airport. I was preoccupied with worrying about my father's health and didn't seem to pay much attention to Anna's trip. I tried to focus on her during the trip. I told her how much I would miss her and asked her to take the time to relax and enjoy Hawaii. We said goodbye, hugging and kissing. She quickly disappeared into a long queue for security at the airport. I promised to call her daily. I returned to my father's bedside. On Saturday, the father was discharged, giving clear instructions to observe bed rest. Doctors were considering surgical options, including bypass surgery. One of my mom and I had to stay by his bedside for the next week or so to make sure he was recovering properly. My father always went to bed early and got up early. I told my mom that I would arrive at 5 o'clock on Sunday morning to be with him and give my mom a chance to get some sleep. She relieved me around 9 in the morning. As I was driving home, I was surprised by Tanner's call. He asked about my father and then asked me to stop by the construction site in the wine country in a large cedar cottage, which he was already finishing. He needed something that the inspector had left. I told him I'd be with my dad today, but I could pick it up sometime next week. He replied that at any time during the week. I also told him that his insurance premium was overdue. Yes, I'll give it to you, he told me. Typical. I'll have to drop by his office and get the check. When I was on the phone, I wanted to be with Anna in Hawaii. I think it was the quiet Hawaiian music that I heard in the background while I was talking to Tanner. She made me think about our honeymoon trip. I associated Hawaiian music with the wonderful time we spent there. I decided to call Anna. A few moments passed, but she answered sleepily. "Good morning," she greeted me. And then it dawned on me that it was still early. There is a 3-hour time difference between Hawaii and the West Coast. It was only 6 in the morning on Kauai. I forgot how early it is, I'm sorry. I told her. It's all right. How's your dad? What is it? She asked. We continued talking about my father and her trip. I longed to be with her. I imagined the open doors to the balcony, the warm breeze, the sound of the ocean, the tropical smell in the air, and the constant, beautiful Hawaiian music. We were in the middle of a conversation, and I wanted to discuss a couple more things with her when my mom called and I had to take my leave. "I'll call you later," I told her and switched to talking to my mom. I had lunch with Dad while Mom was running errands. When she came back, she asked if I could do some housework while she was sitting with Dad. I started doing chores around the house and thought about Anna in Kauai, wishing I was there again. I recalled our brief conversation and the sensual images of Hawaii. Beaches, palm trees, sunsets, music. Music? I started thinking about music. I remembered the music that was playing in the background when I was talking to Anna. I also remembered the same music when I was talking to Tanner. I was seized with a flash of suspicious jealousy. I analyzed the facts. Tanner called me, and I heard Hawaiian music. A few minutes later, I called Anna. It was still early Sunday morning in Hawaii. It looks like Anna was in bed and had just woken up. I heard the same Hawaiian music. Were they together? And if so, what were they doing together at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning? Was I being paranoid? Maybe Tanner was just staying at the same hotel as Anna, and the music was coming out of the speakers? For a moment it seemed possible, and I relaxed. But on further consideration, Tanner would not have stayed at the Sheraton for more than $300 a day for several months in a row while he was working on a house on the beach. He needed to find another, more economical place to live. Did Tanner sleep over at Anna's last night? I decided to call Anna. I told her that my father was feeling better, and we chatted for a while. Nothing concrete. Then I decided to ask a few questions. I asked her about the project and some general questions. "Did you manage to talk to Tanner after work?" I asked innocently. She hesitated. "Why do you ask?" She replied, Oh. I knew that when she didn't want to answer a question, she asked a question in return. "Oh, it's nothing special," I continued casually. "I'm just asking." "Well, I saw him at the construction site," she told me. "That's all." I kept up a light conversation, but alarm bells were ringing in my soul. I didn't have exact evidence, but there were some clues that reinforced my suspicions. Later, I called Tanner. ostensibly to remind him of the late payment. Yes, yes, I know, he said. I'll contact Bernadette in the morning. I was having a light conversation, nothing specific, just the usual chatter. Then I thanked him for taking care of Anna while she was there alone. No problem, he replied. I can't allow my friend's beautiful wife to be left unattended in the evening, he added. We talked a little more, and then I hung up. Something was wrong. Anna told me that she only meets Tanner at the construction site, and Tanner, what accompanies her in the evenings? The stories didn't add up, but I didn't have any concrete evidence that anything was going on, just a lot of clues. I started to develop a plan. I called on the phone and made an appointment for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp. I met Yasmin and Angel Reynosa at the office on Monday morning. I asked them for complete confidentiality. They agreed. I explained to them my concerns about Anna and Tanner. They didn't ask questions, they just listened. I asked them if they could go to Kauai and conduct an informal investigation. I gave them a folder with photos of Tanner and Anna for identification. When, Mr. Max? Angel asked. When do you want us to do this? Tomorrow, I told them. I want you to be there until next Sunday. You will stay at the same hotel as Anna. Just keep an eye on her. If nothing happens, just enjoy the week, I explained. Angel and Yasmin immediately agreed. I told Yasmin that I would make all the arrangements and gave them $1,000 for expenses in addition to housing and air tickets. I told them that I would take them to the airport in the morning, but not a word to anyone about why they're going. They agreed. As they were leaving the office, Angel stopped me. Mr. Max, he said, thank you. If you ever need a favor, ask Angel. He looked me in the eye, shook my hand and left. I may be paranoid, but for me, a few $1,000s is worth it to hear from Reynosa that Anna and Tanner are innocent of everything that my overly jealous imagination has imagined. I continued to call Anna every day, but I never caught any signs from her that something was wrong. I was starting to feel a little stupid about my paranoia and sending Reynosa to spy. On Thursday afternoon, I decided to go to Tanner's almost completed project at Wine Country. He asked me to pick up a document from the county. As soon as I arrived at the cottage, Yasmin called me. I asked them not to call unless there was a reason to report. I expected her to tell me that everything was fine, but it wasn't like that. Max, she began. Angel took some photos that you should see, she told me. I asked her to tell me, but she just kept talking. Look at the pictures. I heard my phone beep for received messages. I told her I'd call her back. There were 4 photographs. In the first one, they walked with their arms wrapped around each other, at sunset along the path in front of the Sheraton. Bad, but not terrible. On the second, they were kissing at a table in a dark restaurant. It's getting worse. On the third, they are on the balcony of a room at the Sheraton, kissing again, and it seems that his hand is lying on her. Pretty bad. And finally, this photo was blurry, but it looks like it's the same room as the previous one, with 2 people behind white curtains. It was bad. I sat on a 5-gallon bucket in the garage at home. I was devastated. My wife and my best friend. I couldn't believe it. After everything I went through with Mia a few years ago, it's all happening again now. But worse, much worse. I do not know exactly how long I sat, but for more than an hour, thinking that my life, which I knew, was ending. I didn't know what to do. Can I forgive her? Can I forgive him? The answers were no and hell no. And then 2 things started happening to me. First, anger began to creep into my brain. White-hot anger. Secondly, I began to feel dizzy from the oil paint that was applied to the cedar shingles. I saw a pile of oiled rags in the corner of the garage. I remembered how at one of the insurance classes they talked about the danger of spontaneous combustion of oiled rags. I want to put them away, but suddenly stopped. I carefully put on a pair of light gloves. I gathered up all the rags and put them in a metal bucket, knocking them into a pile. Then I poured some more oil-based stain into the bucket. I put a bunch of cedar shingles number 1 next to the bucket. After that, I turned on the heater next to a bucket of oiled rags. Then I left. I took the document that Tanner needed and left. Here in the wine country, there were no neighbors nearby. Besides, I had a purpose for which I was here. If the burning really happened, how can you blame me? I remembered the discussion about spontaneous combustion. It occurs when oiled rags or cloth are slowly heated to the ignition temperature as a result of oxidation. As it oxidizes, the substance begins to release heat. If this heat has no outlet, as, for example, in a pile, the temperature will rise to a level sufficient to ignite the oil and ignite a rag or cloth. The fire from this can quickly spread to other combustible materials and cause great damage. I sent Tanner a message that I had the document. Later, I received a thank you in response. I also started thinking about Tanner's insurance. Now it was overdue. I wrote to him about it several times at the beginning of the week. There's no way I'm going to stop by to get it. At the moment, technically, he didn't have fire insurance. I thought about Anna. I couldn't forgive her. She couldn't understand how much she had offended me. I just wish she would feel the same pain. After a few minutes, I had an idea. I called Greg Boston, my construction friend. We agreed to meet in the evening. I told him it was important and urgent. We met at a small restaurant. He looked at me and realized that something was wrong. He asked, and I waved him off. "Greg, you've already asked me about my land several times." I told him, and he nodded. "I want to sell, but I have several conditions. Most importantly, I want the house and garden to be cleared and dismantled in the next 3 days." He almost choked when he heard the schedule. 3 days. He snorted. "It's impossible," he told me. I told him that if not, I would find someone who could do it. "Wait, Max, let me think," he said. After a moment, he said he thought he could do it, but it will be difficult. We discussed the price and one more important condition. We had a gentleman's agreement. We shook hands, and he told me he would start work tomorrow. "Max, as a friend, I have to ask you what's going on," he said. "Greg," I said, "we'll talk about this one day, but today is not the day." He nodded, and we both left. That evening, my phone buzzed on the bedside table. Tanner. I didn't pick up the phone. When I woke up, I had an urgent voicemail from Tanner asking me to call him. I was in no hurry. I flipped through the morning news. A fire with 4 alarms in Yamhill County. Wine country. No one was injured. The house was empty. But it was a complete loss. On the way, I called Tanner, and he answered in desperation. "Max, the house we were finishing burned down," he said. "I need this money. When will we be able to receive compensation?" "Wait," I said. "Which house?" I was becoming a pretty good actor. He talked incoherently about the house, about his cash flow, which merged with the house he was building for Winegrass on Kauai. He was in a panic, jumping from one topic to another. I wasn't sure I could help him even if I wanted to. But I didn't want to. "Tanner," I said calmly, "let me go into the office and take a look at the situation. We can talk later." "Did you tell Bernadette to send a bonus check?" I asked. "What?" He was sputtering. "Don't you understand?" I think I asked her. "Does it really matter?" He continued. I told him I'd take a look and hung up. When I hung up, he was still talking. I had no intention of continuing the conversation. Our friendship was over. Now I had to deal with Anna. Over the next few days, I called Anna and tried my best to behave normally. I think she felt something was wrong, but she didn't say anything. I got some more photos from Angel Reynosa. They only confirmed the previous pictures. Anna and Tanner were making love. Tanner kept calling. There was more desperation in each voice message. Anna was supposed to return home on Monday, the day after tomorrow. I haven't told my parents anything yet. Dad shouldn't have been put under any more stress. And I needed Mom to focus on Dad. Greg Boston had several heavy machinery vehicles, graders, excavators, tractors, which prepared the land for development. Several containers were delivered to me, and I put all of Anna's personal and business belongings in one of them. My things went to another one. It was so strange to drive up to my site. The horizon was completely different. No house, no gardens. On Monday, Anna's flight arrived around 6 in the evening. I picked her up and hugged her, but when she reached out to kiss me on the lips, I turned around and the kiss landed on my cheek. She gave me a questioning look. I ignored him and asked how the flight went. On the way home, she realized that something was wrong. We talked for a couple of minutes about the fire. But after a short conversation, I changed the subject. I was a good actor, but I couldn't completely disguise this betrayal. I suggested stopping at a small bar on the way home. "Max, I've been on the road for 6 hours. I just want to get home," she said. "It'll only take a minute," I told her. and drove into the bar. When we sat down and drank a glass, she looked at me in a puzzled way. "What's so important that we had to stop?" "What is it?" she asked. I handed her the folder with the photos that Angel had sent me. I printed them out. When she opened them, she gasped. She looked from the photos to me and back to the photos. Max, this is not what it seems," she began. "I hung out with Tanner for a while, but nothing much happened. You have to believe me." I held one photo. It showed Anna on the balcony in the evening, Tanner standing behind her. I put it in front of her. "Didn't anything happen?" I asked. She was sobbing. She told me how sorry she was. She said it got out of control. Tanner was aggressive and persuasive. He made her feel young again. "We can get through this. It will never happen again." And so on, and so on, and so on. "Anna," I said with calm, controlled anger, "I'm not sure you realize how deeply you've hurt me. Hopefully one day, and maybe soon, you'll feel the same pain." "Max, I'm really, really sorry," she sobbed. "Maybe we should just go home and try to sort this out," she begged. "Yes," I said. "It's time to go home." And we left. I didn't say anything until the end of the trip. Anna sobbed and begged for forgiveness. I was silent. I was wondering at what point Anna would realize that everything had changed. I didn't have to wait long. "Max? What is it?" she asked as we drew closer. "What? What's happening?" She saw heavy machinery and a flattened house. She continued to stare into the twilight, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. I was silent, waiting for a reaction. Max. Her head was spinning between the changed look and the look at me. "Where is everything? The house, my office, my gardens." Her voice rose. "I decided to develop this property. I got a good offer for the land," I told her calmly. "They're going to build 28 houses. I got a very good price. I think it's going to work out," I told her with false enthusiasm. "Did you sell her house? What about my gardens? My business?" She was furious. And then it dawned on her. "What about my TV show?" "Stop it," she screamed. I shrugged, raising my palms to the sky in a gesture of all right. Anna was walking through what had once been her garden. Pieces of once neatly planted shrubs and flowers have mixed with the damp earth, which has been loosened by heavy machinery. For several minutes she just stood there, looking at the changed landscape. "Did you do this to hurt me?" "What is it?" she asked. "Is this my punishment?" She screamed at me. I was silent. "Answer me. Answer me. You fucking asshole," she shouted. And then she collapsed into a sitting position, tears streaming down her cheeks. Maybe she was in the same pain as me. I felt absolutely no sympathy. "Did I hurt you?" I asked with exaggerated disbelief. "We're married. And you're flying to Hawaii while I'm taking care of my sick dad and making love to my best friend," I told her. When I found out, I realized that my life had changed. Forever. After that, I decided to make other changes. "Your stuff is in this container." I pointed to the nearest one. "And here are the car keys." I handed her the keys. "I need to go to my family. You may have to stay with your family." Having said that, I started walking to my car. "Max," she shouted. "So that's it. You ruined my garden, ruined my career plans, and now you're just leaving? Is that really all our marriage is worth?" "What is it?" she asked. I turned to her and stared at her. "Don't you dare question my commitment to our marriage," I told her. "We'll talk about everything, but not today." And I left. The next morning at the office, I told Yasmin everything that had happened. She knew most of it. I also told her that Tanner would be calling and that she would act as my gatekeeper. Yasmin also confirmed that we never received a check for insurance payment from either Tanner or Texas Pacific. Their insurance was officially canceled last Monday, 3 days before the house fire in the wine country. In the middle of the morning, the Yamhill County Fire Inspector visited me. Somehow, probably through Tanner, he was informed that I was in the house on Thursday, the day of the fire. I told him that yes, I was there. I took the documents at Tanner's request. He asked if I had noticed anything, if I had smelled anything, or if anything looked unusual. I replied that I had only been to this house once, a few months ago, so I had nothing to compare it with. But no, I didn't notice anything unusual. Then I asked if they had determined the cause of the fire. Nothing official yet, but, he said, it could have been a spontaneous combustion. I arched my eyebrows and looked at him with a confused expression on my face. Spontaneous? What? I asked. He went on to explain the properties of spontaneous combustion. I nodded, asked a few inquisitive questions, and then he left. That was the last I heard from the fire department. I asked Yasmin to look into Tanner's claims against Guarantor, the company we represent in property and liability insurance. I didn't want to get involved with this lawsuit. My anger at Anna was eclipsed only by my anger at Tanner. Tanner kept trying to reach me on both his cell phone and office phone. I ignored my cell phone, and Yasmin declined calls to the office. He seemed to be getting more and more desperate. Yasmin began the process of obtaining insurance compensation through a guarantee for Tanner. But, as I knew the work of insurance companies, it can be difficult to get compensation for overdue payments. Early one morning, after numerous calls, I finally accepted Anna's phone call. "Max," she said, "we need to talk. I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I need you." I decided that this meeting was inevitable. I was still numb from her betrayal, but I wanted to understand it. The fact that she was making love to Tanner during what was supposed to be our second honeymoon was more than unacceptable. "All right," I agreed. "Let's meet at the coffee clutch in the old town at 4 o'clock in the afternoon," I said, and hung up when she agreed to the meeting. We met, without hugging or any physical interaction. She continued to look at me, as if assessing my state of mind. Anger, sadness, forgiveness. She wanted to understand what I had come to. I decided to start. "Anna," I began, "when we first met, you, of all people, knew how much I suffered from my relationship with Mia in high school. I know, and I felt so bad that I—" She interrupted. I raised my hand. "Anna," I said, calmly, but with irritation, "let me finish. Your turn will come, but I think it's important for you to hear what I'm getting at." She silently nodded her head in the affirmative. "After Mia," I continued, "I almost decided that I was going to live as an inveterate bachelor. I've been on dates, but nothing serious. But then you came along. You've cheered me up. I thought you understood. I trusted you. It seemed to me that I was healed. And now this. You cheated on me, not only with your ex-boyfriend, but also with my best friend. I'd be very curious to know why," I told her. She talked for a few minutes about how sorry she was and what a big mistake it all was. I stared at her stonily as she tried to find some kind of forgiveness. Then she told me a story. She was thrilled to go to Hawaii, even though I wasn't there. She said the sounds, sights, and smells reminded her of how wonderful our honeymoon was. She was in a good mood. Tanner met her at a small airport in Lihue. On the way to Kaloa, he drove her past a construction site. She said she was surprised at how little had been done. Nevertheless, Tanner was still optimistic about the progress of the work. They arrived at the Sheraton Hotel, and Tanner insisted on inviting her to dinner that evening. He picked her up at 7 o'clock, and they went to a local place, the Paradise of Keoki. She was in a good mood. He was in a good mood, and obviously the tropical drinks were flowing like a river. Tanner started talking about the old days. After dinner, they strolled along the beach in front of the Sheraton Hotel, taking off their shoes. Tanner continued to reminisce about their past relationship. Anna said she was tipsy, happy, and discussing her school days with Tanner made her feel young. Tanner insisted on a nightcap and asked to see her room. He used her that night. Anna said she knew it was so wrong, but at the same time she thought that since I would never find out, it would just be an affair. She would put it out of her mind and not talk about it anymore. According to her, they continued to be close while she was in Kauai. "Max, please don't ruin our lives over such a small thing. He means nothing to me. Tanner means nothing to me. I'll do whatever you want. Please, I'm begging you. Please, please, at least think about it." She begged. I agreed to think about it. The next day, I filed for divorce with her. The fact is that evening, after leaving Anna at the coffee clutch, I really thought about it. And the more I thought about it, the more angry I got. After all, I realized that no matter what, I would never be able to fully trust her again. "I can't live like this." She called me, texted me, and finally came to the office when I didn't answer. She stormed into the office, angry at me for serving her. She said I promised to think about it. Why did I give up on our marriage? Don't I have compassion? Haven't I ever made mistakes? Etc. I didn't talk much. Then she started talking about how I had ruined her business opportunities at KPL. It seems that without her gardens, they have reassessed in the garden with Anna. The gardens were supposed to be the backdrop. Without them, the show's appeal declined. My silence seemed to anger her. She then claimed that she was entitled to half of our property, including the house and land. Anna, this land is in a family trust. My Aunt Helen ordered it, I told her. And even so, I was the caretaker of this property before you and I got together. I have consulted with my lawyer. You don't have any rights to the property or anything from the trust. Now, if you don't mind, I need to finish some more work. And with that, I turned the computer screen towards me and started working. She sat for a minute, got up, left, and slammed the door as she left. It was 3 days before Tanner showed up at my office. I thought he was still in Hawaii. I heard a noise in the waiting room where Yasmin was sitting. Before I could figure it out, Tanner burst into my office. Get out, I told him, pointing to the exit. Max, give me a minute. I deserve it. I need to talk to you, not to. And he jerked his thumb back to where Yasmin was standing now. I was furious, but I was also curious what he had to say about his financial situation and his bedtime contacts with Anna. I need you to move this lawsuit forward, he told me with a desperation I'd never seen in Max before. I'm running out of time with real estate in Hawaii. I need money for a cottage in the wine country to finish a house on the beach, he said in a confused voice. I thought about his words. It looks like he mortgaged a cottage in wine country to buy a lot on Kauai. Then I took a deposit from Winegrass to finish with wine country. He then mortgaged a lot on Kauai to obtain materials for the construction of a coastal house, or something like that. As a result, he had a lot of borrowed capital, and he owed Sydney Winegrass a coastal house. First of all, I told him, instead of spending time in Hawaii using my wife, you should have paid the insurance premium. Secondly, I do not control the claims. The guarantor decides whether the claim is justified. Not me. I'm just an agent. Thirdly, I doubt that you will receive compensation for the claim. Your policy was canceled due to lack of payment. Finally, get out of here. I never want to see you again. Max, he began, and really turned on the charm. Look, the business with Anna is nothing. It was just in the good old days. It doesn't mean anything. She loves you. You're all she talks about, he sang like a nightingale. I interrupted him. Get out. I growled. Finally, he left. I thought about what he had done. I still couldn't keep track of all the loans and collateral, but I knew one thing. He was in deep shit with Sydney Winegrass. Not the kind of person I'd want to be on the bad side with. Life, for the next week or two, went on as usual. Greg Boston was turning Aunt Helen's old lot into what was going to be a neighborhood at some point. My father was getting better too. Anna got a lawyer, and our lawyers were sorting out the property, gradually unraveling the financial components of our marriage. The emotional part was like a dark cloud engulfing me. Surrounded by others, I tried to stay cheerful and positive, but it was very difficult to be alone. I had a few dark thoughts, mostly focused on Tanner and Anna. I decided to consult a psychologist. Gradually, I began to notice faint glimpses of positivity in my life. One evening, a few weeks after that last meeting with Tanner, I met up with a couple of friends to have a drink and eat at a regular restaurant near the city. As I headed toward the dark parking lot, I began to think that maybe my life could return to some kind of normal state. As I approached my car, I noticed a couple of people not far from where I parked. Two large men seemed to be wandering near my car. A black Chrysler 300 with non-standard wheels was parked nearby. As I moved to get into the car, two guys approached me. Hey, what? I said, as each of them grabbed my arm. Hello, buddy. I heard and turned to see Michael Amich coming up to me. Mr. Winegrass wants to talk to you, buddy, Amich said. He can make an appointment for me in the morning. I'm done for today, I told Amich. At the same time, I began to struggle to get rid of the two thugs. Their grip tightened. While I was writhing, Amich, the freak, came up and hit me right in the face with the back of his hand. For a moment, when blood flowed from my lip, I was stunned. Mr. Winegrass wants to see you now, he informed me. Guys, put him in the back seat, he ordered the thugs. It was unreal. I was kidnapped. I was sure that Winegrass was digging into his deal with Tanner, and for some reason believed that I had something to do with it. I was sure I could explain my innocence, but it all looked so rude. I couldn't ignore the fear that came over me. Our destination was an old building in the industrial part of the city center, near the docks. It was deserted at this time of day. There was not a single interested observer who would come to my aid. I was dragged into a dark basement. I noticed that all the windows leading to the basement were boarded up. There was a musty smell here, and water dripped on the stone walls in places. Soon I noticed something else. Taped to a wooden chair, Tanner sat in the shadows. He looked a little beaten up, and there was despair hidden from prying eyes in his face. It was a far cry from the confident personality he usually carried. Amich and one of the thugs left after they taped me to the same chair. One guy silently stayed with us in this gloomy dungeon. Soon Amich and the other asshole returned. "Mr. Winegrass is delayed. He will be here soon," Amich told us. "In the meantime, buddy, you and I have unfinished business." And he stared at me. "Do you remember how you lost a leg to me?" he asked. I didn't say anything. "It's time for revenge," he told me. And with those words, Michael Amich beat me up while I was strapped to a chair. He hit me in the face over and over again. I knew that I had lost my teeth and most likely had a broken nose. I may have lost consciousness. My eyes have turned into slits from swelling. He seemed to be enjoying this action immensely. Fortunately, Amich's phone rang. "Mr. Winegrass is on his way," he said, wiping my blood off his hands with a rag. The three of them went upstairs to wait. Max, Tanner whispered to me. "Winegrass needs money. We need to stick together. I can find $500,000 to pay him off. Can you get $1 million? I think we can come to an agreement, but we need to stick together." "Okay, Max." It was difficult to talk with my injuries. At that moment, Amich, two thugs, and Sidney Winegrass came down the stairs. Winegrass was wearing a tailored black suit, a white shirt, and a red knotted tie. Winegrass was thin, with styled dark hair combed back from his forehead. He looked like a wolf. "Michael, turn on the light," he ordered. "I want to see what I'm dealing with." Amich quickly turned on the only overhead light. Winegrass was pacing the basement with his hands clasped behind his back, walking around us in a circle and studying Tanner and me. "Sid, Mr. Winegrass," Tanner began. "As soon as I receive the insurance money, I will be able to return the money to you. All I need is for Max to approve it. He was supposed to get a check from me at my office." He droned on and on. "It's a lot for us to be together." With his hands behind his back, Winegrass turned to us. "Gentlemen, I am an honest businessman. I'm trying to find a deal that suits all parties. I think this is the best way to do business. Everyone gets their piece." He continued, "But I never want to show weakness. When you, as a businessman, show weakness, your partners, competitors, even those whom you considered friends, will try to take advantage of you. I can't do business like this," he explained. "So, Mr. Bishop," he said to Tanner, "we agreed that you would build a beautiful house for me in Hawaii. I like the idea of a house in a tropical location. I'm giving you the money, and you spend it on completing some other house, and then this house burns down. And you're telling me that you don't have insurance? It's true? What is it?" he asks. Tanner is mumbling something about the insurance company, that I should have received the check, and it could all work, and so on. There was no point in his despair. Winegrass clapped his hands for silence. "Mr. Early," he nodded in my direction. "As an insurance agent, you have to take care of your client, Mr. Bishop." Now he nodded in Tanner's direction. "And Mr. Bishop says it's your fault that he's not insured. And now Mr. Bishop has filed for bankruptcy. And I don't have a house in the tropics that I paid for. I'm asking you both, is that fair?" He's looking at Tanner and me. Tanner immediately starts his story about how I should have picked up the check, that it wasn't his fault, and so on. I can see that Winegrass is getting angry. The more Tanner makes excuses, the angrier he gets. Finally, he turns to Amich. "Get rid of both of them." And he's heading for the stairs. Tanner goes crazy, struggles, and comes up with the same old excuses that it wasn't his fault. Winegrass continues walking towards the stairs while the thugs move towards Tanner and me. "Mr. Winegrass," I say, "I'm speaking for the first time, and it's hard for me to pronounce words with a beaten face. Can I ask you a question?" He stops and turns partially towards me. He nods, as if to say, "Go on." "I suspect that you, as a businessman, have insured your assets, including your property," I say. Winegrass doesn't answer, but he listens. "I'm asking you, does your insurance agent come to your office to get a check for the insurance premium? Or do you or someone in your office send it when the payment deadline comes?" He's looking at me. Tanner starts to interrupt, but is told to shut up. "And one more question," I say. "If a tenant rents a property from you and does not pay when he has to, is it your fault?" He starts nodding affirmatively, as if he understands my thought. "If you will allow me, and just free one hand, I want to show you something else." He nods to the first thug to cut the duct tape. I reached into my pocket and carefully pulled out my iPhone. I hand it to the thug. "The bonus was supposed to be paid on October 15th, I say, and Winegrass is already examining my iPhone. As you can see, I sent him an SMS with a reminder of the awards on October 6th, 8, and 13. If you look at my sent emails, you will see that I wrote to him on October 9th, as well as on the 11th. In my letters, you will see that I have once again stressed the importance of payment. I tell him. Winegrass is intently studying what I assume are my letters to Tanner. "I agree with you," I tell Winegrass. "Part of my job is to take care of my clients. In my opinion, if I contact them 5 times during the week, the client will have enough opportunities to pay for the services that I provide to him. I think this is fair. And you?" I asked. At the same time, he looks away, nodding his head, and his index finger taps on his compressed lips. He thought about it. Finally, he turns to Amish. "Michael, take Mr. Rano to his car," he tells Amish. "And Mr. Early, don't tell anyone about this. Please know that I know where you live, where you work, and I know people who are close to you. Am I making myself clear?" "What is it?" he asks. I silently nod in agreement. As much as I would like to report this, I don't want to worry all my life and look over my shoulder. When Amish and I leave, Tanner goes crazy, begging to be saved. I don't feel any remorse. "Max, please." The last thing I hear is when Amish and I leave this damp basement. On the way back, Amish tries to be friendly. "Hey, no hard feelings, buddy. Business is business," he says with a fake grin. I don't answer anything. After a moment, he continues. "I think we're even. You broke my leg. I've ruined your face a little." And the fake grin again. I'm silent the whole way. Amish refused to make small talk. On the one hand, I am very relieved that I will not suffer the fate of Tanner. On the other hand, I never liked Amish, and he took great pleasure in beating me up. I was getting out of the car when Amish leaned over the seat and told me through the open passenger door. "Remember what Mr. Winegrass said," he tells me. Not a word about it. I stared at Amish and gave him a curt nod. Looking at him, I thought, I don't know where or when, but I will take revenge. Many months later, the sun was magnificent as I looked at the blue water of my pool. Part of my negotiations with Greg Boston, my construction friend who designed this facility, was my own residence. I took a half-acre with a backyard facing directly south, on the highest part of the lot. He designed a beautiful one-level house in the style of mid-century modern, with a backyard similar to a resort and a wonderful swimming pool. The divorce was difficult. My lawyer did a good job protecting me from having to share the proceeds from Aunt Helen's estate with Anna. She was, of course, trying to get her share. In the end, I had to write her a check, but it was much less than she asked for. Last I heard, she's still upset about it. My thoughts, as they often do, returned to our relationship. For some reason, I was thinking about that evening when Anna, Tanner, and I sat and discussed our individual dreams. In the end, none of us got what we wanted. Tanner wanted to be rich, Anna wanted to be famous, and I just wanted a quiet life with my business and my wife. Tanner wasn't rich, and it's unlikely he was even alive. Anna, at least for the moment, was not famous. The opportunity to work with KPL has disappeared. One thing that I remember in connection with our reflections is that I said that I would never be rich. I was wrong about that too. After selling the property, I quickly became a multimillionaire. And, of course, I didn't have the peaceful existence with my wife that I wanted so much at that moment in my life. It bothered me at times, but I've already come to terms with my bachelor life. At that moment, I looked up and saw my new girlfriend coming out topless from the far end of the pool. I smiled. Max, young Brittany asked, "Can you put sunscreen on me?" "Yes," I smiled. I felt comfortable being a bachelor. The ballroom was bustling. Everyone was dressed in exquisite evening attire. My companion, Kai, was stunning in a black miniskirt. There were dozens of round tables all over the hall. The annual Children's Charity Ball was one of the main social events of the year. At the far end of the room, I saw Sydney Winegrass with an attractive woman who was at least 10 years younger than him. I decided to go to his table and shake his hand. He didn't recognize me at first. The last time he saw me, I was a bloody mess. When he recognized me, he showed courtesy in his refined manner. "I've just provided myself with an alibi." I left quickly. When I turned around and walked back to my table and Kai in a miniskirt, a shiver ran down my spine. I needed to wash my hands. That evening, in another area of the city, Michael Amich left the Central Bar, probably having drunk a couple of glasses more than he should have for driving. He went into the parking lot and looked for the keys. He noticed that it was darker than usual in this corner of the parking lot. He also noticed a short, swarthy man, whose face was hidden in the gloom, leaning against the front fender of his Chrysler. "Chief, move over," he said to the man. After these words, the man stood up and stared at Amich. And then two more men appeared from the shadows. The first blow was like a whip, when the little man struck with lightning speed. Then another and another. Amich didn't stand a chance. He was beaten half to death and lost consciousness. As the first man continued to kick the lifeless Amich, one of his companions whispered softly, "Angel, come on, we need to go."